Okay, everyone, let's continue on section 3, enabling connectivity in ACI, fabric domains and VLAN pools. Okay, everyone, so if you remember our previous video, we discussed the switch profiles and the interface profiles, and that is how we enable those physical interfaces and connect our devices into the ACI fabric. Now, we connected all those devices, but we need to allow the traffic through. And the way that we do that is by configuring domains. We configure domains, and then the domains are associated into the tenants, right? So in the tenant side, we are creating our virtual network on top of ACI, and inside that virtual network, we assign the domains. So the virtual portion of ACI can talk to the physical portion of ACI. Okay, we have not only physical domains, we have external domains, and those will be connectivity at layer 2 and layer 3. Those are known as layer 2 out and layer 3 out. Finally, we have virtual machine manager or VMM integration, which means that I am going to associate my ACI fabric to a virtual domain, in this case, either VMware or Hyper-V, or even container-based. We can associate ACI to a container-based environment running on Kubernetes. Let's go ahead and discuss, and let me show you so you can understand how physical domains relates to our configurations and ultimately into our policies. Okay, so I am showing you the physical domain side. Okay, so let me go ahead real quick. We discuss switch profiles, and also we discuss interface profile, but this only allows me to connect devices and enable those interfaces. It doesn't allow me to pass the traffic that I need to pass. So I got this particular snip here, or this particular object. This represents the physical domain that we're going to create in ACI. And this physical domain is going to be labeled as SRV1 or Server 1. Server 1, it's going to have a VLAN pool from 100 to 102, meaning that I am going to allow VLANs 100 through 102 to this particular server. What is a good case for this? It might be a ESXi host, or it can be any other server that allows me to tag interfaces on the operating system, right? So let's go ahead and draw an ESXi host, right? Let's call this guy ESXi1. We connect those interfaces, we dual home them to leaf 1 and 2 by creating a VPC interface profile. And if you are still not familiar, go back into the previous video. I go deep into configuring interface profiles. So you associated that interface profile as a VPC because we're going to build a port channel span between two leaves. That interface profile was associated to the switch profile, which means that my VPC profile is attached to my leaf 1 and leaf 2 switch profile. Once I build that interface profile and the switch profile and I associate that to my leaf, I then need to assign a domain to it, right? So in this case, we're going to create SRV1. Inside SRV1, we're going to make a VLAN pool and associate it to it that allows this range of VLANs. So on my object, I am going to associate to physical domain, and this is the name of the domain that we are going to create, which then is going to carry VLANs 100 through 102. Same here. And let me go ahead real quick. Let me erase this so you already understand what are we accomplishing. So once we connect this and once we associate the profile, the domain, to my interface profile, I am going to allow on those interfaces VLANs 100 through 102. So I am allowing those VLANs to cross those interfaces. So this is how we allow the VLANs through. Okay, in this other scenario, we have switch 1. Switch 1 has VLAN pool And the name of my pool is SW1 pool 1, meaning that I am going to make an object as a VLAN pool object 110 to 122. This range will be allowed in a downstream switch that we are connecting into the fabric. This will be switch 1. And same, I did a VPC interface profile associated to switch profiles for leaf 3 and leaf 4. Once I'm done with that, I then associate a physical domain to that VPC interface. By associating a physical domain to my interface, I am allowing the following VLANs that are associated to my physical domain. I know there's a lot of connections, there's a lot of stuff that you connect together to make this work, but once you start understanding how the hierarchy of the configuration approach goes, then you'll understand how everything fits together. And this is why we're doing this training, and don't worry, I am going straight into showing you how can you accomplish that. So, by attaching that VLAN pool, I am allowing, again, between those two interfaces, VLANs 110 through 122, right? So this switch, we can connect endpoints in this VLAN range, and they are going to talk on the ACI fabric. Let's go to our next scenario, and we're going to go ahead and discuss each scenario. External domains, L2 out. L2 out. What's the difference between, what we did before, which is a VLAN pool associated with a physical domain? In an external domain, we want to, for example, implement a stateful firewall that instead of us routing the traffic on the fabric, we send that layer 3 request down to another device that is outside of the fabric, and then the device can route it back into the fabric. Let's say a firewall, let's say a load balancer. Those devices, we might end up doing an L2 out, right? And let's say this is a firepower. Okay, so we got a firepower threat defense, and we also did a port channel between two leaves. But what we want to accomplish is the following. We got a server, right, associated with another profile. Let's say the server has a different profile, and we can call this, SRV, right? This server needs to go out to the internet. The way that we allow the traffic to the WAN is by passing it through the firepower firewall. So this becomes a layer 2 link, and we have a layer 2 extension to this particular physical domain. So it's basically the connectivity goes as follow, or the path goes SRV domain. In this case, it can be a physical, it can be a virtual, doesn't matter. Goes to X, and then from there goes out to the WAN. What good case can we associate this scenario? This might be the DMZ. The server's default gateway is the firepower threat defense appliance. So this default gateway is 0.1. This server's IP is 10.10.0.10. You see, my server IP is 10.10.0.10, and my default gateway, it's not in the ACI fabric, it's on an external appliance. What's the server going to do? The server is just going to send the traffic to the ACI fabric, and then the ACI fabric, because I am associated to that external L2 out, is just going to treat it as external, and then it's going to use the firepower to go out to the internet. You see? So I'm just doing a layer 2 extension. I am connecting stuff, devices, servers in the ACI fabric, but then my route or my local router for this particular network, it's not in the ACI fabric, it's actually out. Imagine yourself, you're building a virtual trunk. That's what it is. External domains, layer 3 out, L3 outs. Those are very common in ACI. I think you should focus a lot on L3 outs, physical domains, and VMM integration. Those are very important. L3 outs, very simple. We got a switch acting as another router, external switch, right? And we always want to do VPC because we want redundancy. Okay, N+1, remember. So we got a VPC interface profile, and let's say this is a Nexus 7K. we have our MPLS cloud. And let's say we have our provider network. Let me do a way better cloud object. Or nowadays, you can, let's label it SD-WAN. So we got an SD-WAN or MPLS. The 7K is my edge to that SD-WAN network or MPLS that then connects to my external sites. So we got branch 1, we got branch 2, and this is a scenario, right? We got our production servers, right? On the ACI fabric, the default gateway for those resources sits on the ACI fabric. However, I need to allow access from my branches to my ACI fabric, and you do that with an L3 out, right? There is either an OSPF, or BGP adjacency between the 7Ks and my leaf 1 and leaf 2. The fabric can peer at layer 3 using my L3 out. So I can select OSPF or BGP and peer point-to-point or broadcast from my leaf to the 7Ks. So this connection is layer 3. And we have connectivity at layer 3 between my ACI fabric to my edge. In this case, this 7K has BGP to my SD-WAN or MPLS. And then what I do, if I want to go to a network outside of my fabric, the server sends the traffic to the fabric. The fabric will have an external routed domain that then says, oh, yeah, I know where that is. And it's been forwarded to my 7K. From there, it goes outside to the WAN. Same thing backwards. From my branch office, the request goes out to the WAN, comes from the 7K, and the 7K will already have a route table because we advertise ourselves in the fabric using OSPF or BGP, sends the traffic upstream, and then lands either leaf 1 or leaf 2. Okay, finally, virtual domain integration. Virtual machine manager, in this case, this is a VMware's approach of integrating into the ACI fabric. We usually have in a VMware environment, we have a vCenter server that allows management and operations to all my ESXi hosts, right? So we have a vCenter cluster. And by the way, I am discussing topics regarding virtualization, ESXi 1, ESXi 2, and finally ESXi 3. Okay, vCenter does a VMM integration onto the fabric. This is completely virtual. And why do I mean by that? In ACI, I only provide admin for vCenter to synchronize the vCenter server using my management network. My management network is going to allow my ACI fabric to communicate to vCenter and synchronize. So it's going to do a call to my vCenter, and with this call, I can dynamically push configurations, and in this case, port groups, because it allows VDS if your vCenter environment supports VDS. And again, for those who don't know VMware, we're discussing ACI, which is purely data center. So you should read more about VMware and vCenter and virtualization because, you know, your data center, if you're here watching this video, you're pursuing data center expertise and you want to learn more about ACI, because you're going on that field or you're already on that field. But if you don't know virtualization, I suggest you start looking at that because it's heavily involved in our fabric. It does an API call. It connects to vCenter. From ACI, I can just select an APG. I associate my virtual domain to it. And then in vCenter, you're going to see a virtual distributed switch pushing port groups because ACI does the integration and then ACI creates the port groups on the fly. The only thing you need to do is grab your VM and attach your NIC to the port group that ACI just pushed, and that VM is automatically part of that APG. It's amazing. So let's go ahead and take a quick look at the configurations, and we'll go from there. Okay, in our next video, we're going to configure those fabric domains and VLAN pools. Thank you for watching.